The phone conversation between fantasy veterans Bob Harris and Matt Waldman is a quick and dirty rundown of players, units, or teams from Sunday's games. Feel it or fuck it is our instant verdict on the fantasy value of a player or situation, not the ability, effort, or character of the player. This is just how two old-timers in this industry talk when they got a lot to cover in a little time. Hello, Bob Harris. Now that we've discovered that you are the dot matrix printer of the world, which is a hell of a sight better than most laser jets, But I like the sound effects that you were making, that's for sure. So it must be a good morning.
I have my moments. I do have my moments. And also, I just want to start this out. Hello, Matt Waldman. How are you? I hope all is well. And it seems like you're in a jovial mood. Some things must be going well. Taylor Swift, feel it or fuck it.
Oh, fuck it. I mean, I don't have anything against Taylor Swift. I don't think I can tell you what a Taylor Swift song is. I just know that there's this thing called Swifties, and I know that they're all like probably, all the football people who are trying to cash in on some clicks keep talking about how Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift or whatever. I'm just more interested in the game, not the game outside the game.
It's business. This just in. The marketing folks tend to overplay their hands at times. This might be one of them.
Gee, really?
Otherwise, I don't really have a big problem with any of this.
Yeah, I don't either, though. I think there's a guy named Chad Forbes who probably overplayed his hand a little bit on Twitter with his tasteless joke about the whole thing. I did see that this morning. Something about a dead fish. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, speaking of, more the living, Christian Kirk is alive and well, it looks like, at least after last week. A lot of people left him for dead. Where are you?
So I'm this is a reinforcement of something that we talk about every summer on the Football Diehards program. Mike Dempsey and I, we do tons of drafts, and we often invest in the cheaper portion of, things, right? Like there's the Jaguars wide receivers. Well, there came a point where Calvin Ridley was incredible. The price was rising. And not to say I didn't have Calvin Ridley, but there came a point where, wow, Christian Kirk's way cheap. I think I'll take the cheaper piece of this offense. And so if you did that, you're probably going to be pretty happy. But, I mean, the theory is that Christian Kirk's days come against man defenses. And maybe that should be the expectation. So, I do think Calvin Ridley's better than the numbers have borne out right at this point. I mean, I guess you are what your results are. But I think he's still a better player than what the results have been the last couple of weeks. He's been really close on some touchdowns. He got the touchdown in London. That was great. But I think this will all course correct over the coming weeks. I think, Calvin Ridley will probably still be the piece you want to have every week. But there's going to be weeks where you'll be happy you had Kirk.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that the Zay Jones injury probably solidified enough for Kirk, because I know there were some folks at the site that I work at who were kind of like, Christian Kirk is dead. Zay Jones has taken over for him. And I kind of felt like that was a little premature, only from the standpoint that last year I think there were 8 games, if I remember correctly, where Kirk was out targeted and out snapped by Zay Jones. So the snap data to me was a little immature about that. And I bet that Kirk probably is a little bit more favorable towards zone man coverage. And Ridley, I agree with you. I've been touting Kirk all summer as like he's going to be close enough to Ridley that you're getting the discount and getting an equally productive player.
It may well turn out we all overpaid for Ridley, and if that's the case, everyone will be in the same boat who has him.
So are we in that boat with Jonnu Smith and Kyle Pitts?
Look, I want Kyle Pitts to be a thing, and I don't want to offend the analytics folks by just, I know they're all there. I know the underlying things are all there for a huge breakout. We don't get the breakout. I'm not going to keep pretending it's coming. Right. I hope it does. I hope he's a great player, but it just at this point, I don't know if this is first of all, the Smith connection. I smell a rat here. Arthur, Jonnu, something's going on. I feel like, the expectations have been so high for Kyle Pitts all along. We're trying to justify, the continued playing of him. I'm not playing him, and I'm not playing Jonnu Smith either, for that on that. And Drake London remains a tough wide receiver 3 decision for me, because why this passing attack is dependent on Desmond Ridder until Arthur Smith has a greater level of trust in him. And I know the positive thing on Desmond Ridder was, well, he's not turning the ball over. Oh, okay, now he is. Now what's the justification? So I don't know. I'm not excited about any passing piece any receiving piece or passing piece in this offense at this point in time. In fact, I'm no longer all that interested in Tyler Algier. Bijan Robinson is the only piece that you can safely play in this offense.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith is basically the second read or the schemed play option that occasionally hits big, because other teams are concerned with the rest of the players, and Desmond Ridder can't really move from one to the other. And the best analytic for quarterback decision, for quarterbacks in terms of interceptions that are likely coming, is just watching how they make decisions. And when you watch how they make decisions, you see that this guy really doesn't know the difference between a good a favorable coverage throw and an unfavorable coverage target. And they were coming, and they're here now.
And also, I mean, isn't this like basically what Jonnu Smith was in Tennessee?
Yeah.
Same thing.
He's sloppy seconds,
right.
And he's not always going to get sloppy seconds. So so I would just look at it that way, is that just like what you probably all thought when I said sloppy seconds, he's probably that dude hanging out at that club that he's probably striking out way more often than he's hitting. So Jordan Love, on the other hand, has Jordan Love been, speaking of man coverage, has Jordan Love been found out? Because I watched yesterday the Thursday night game, and what I did notice is that against the Bears with all that zone coverage, he looked really good. Against the Falcons with that zone coverage, he had a lot of good moments. Last week against the Detroit Lions, who early on played tons of man coverage, Jordan Love didn't look so good. So what you thinking?
If we're being honest, how good has he looked? I mean, what does the completion percentage tell us? I mean, it's been the touchdowns have come, and that's why he's looked great, and I'm fine with that, right? Touchdowns count, and you can't take them away once he's got them. But I think all along there was a little bit of concern that 55-ish% completion percentage was going to rear its ugly head, and maybe it will continue on. I'm still going to go with where I've been at on him is. He's a young quarterback who's probably better than we expected. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He has good, young, talented players around him, a lot of speed in that offense, or at least in that receiving core. And I think he'll be a serviceable quarterback to play. If you're in a super flex league and you've waited late and you got him, you'll probably be okay with it. And if there's weeks during the bye you have to play him, hope it's touchdown week.
Yeah, and he is, when he has to. Unlike, say, C.J. Stroud, who we'll talk about maybe a little bit down the line at some point, he isn't as confident against man coverage at this stage. And I think part of that, too, is your receivers. You mentioned those young receivers. They're young. He's young. He's still in his rookie phase in terms of the number of starts that he's had. Maybe not the number of years he's been around the team. And so, being on the same page with your receivers, that can take a little bit of time. That's probably about 5 to 7 percentage points in completion percentage.
And look, this was part of the plan. They told us this. Why do they have all these young receivers? They want them to grow together with Jordan Love for future success. I believe they realized this might be a developmental year, or not a developmental year, but a less competitive year than maybe the fans are used to. But that doesn't mean Jordan Love is bad or coming short of expectations or anything. I think he's exceeding expectations because the touchdowns have been there, certainly fantasy expectations. But I think he's exactly what the Packers knew he was, because why? They're with him every damn day. A lot of times we get these ideas in our mind as fantasy managers. Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that?
Jahmyr Gibbs.
This needs that. Shut up about Jahmyr Gibbs, fucker. We'll get to that. You're triggered.
But but you're right, because I'm feeling Jordan Love still. Maybe not for, maybe not. We're looking at him as a redraft QB1, but that's not really been the right expectation, as you said. It's just let him grow, let him develop.
Exactly.
Yes. So
I feel that.
Yeah.
Matt Waldman. I feel that.
I'm glad we put you back in a jovial spirit. How about Chris Godwin? Does he do that for you?
No, what he does for me is he validates a theory I espoused all offseason long, which was less than ideal quarterback situations don't necessarily mean horrible outcomes for wide receivers. And we're seeing that with Mike Evans as well. And other players. We see it every darn year. But in our minds, our lizard brains inflate these perceived shortcomings into the worst possible outcomes to protect us. This goes back to the caveman times when that mouse outside the cave might have been a saber-toothed tiger, right? You had to be ready for stuff. And we do the same thing with these situations. And I think, it's not going to be great every week. But like Godwin's ADP was ahead of Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans is going to turn out, again, another point of investing in cheaper pieces of things over the course of the season is going to be just fine. But so is Chris Godwin. I think he's going to be a perfectly serviceable player. I think this week was a little more than you should expect on a weekly basis, though.
Yeah, and I think that, obviously with Mike Evans having the halftime hamstring pull.
At least he didn't get thrown out.
Yeah, at least he didn't. He and Marcus Lattimore, or Marshawn Lattimore behaved themselves. Yes, absolutely. But yeah, Baker Mayfield looks the same to me. I mean, like you see certain throws that he makes well, certain things in the pocket that he doesn't. Depends on how well the offensive line can protect him and how quickly he can get the ball out. And Godwin, to me, was always going to be the guy that I thought was going to be the second banana to Evans, so I'm a little bit more surprised. But part of it is, too, that he's a year healthier, and Godwin's a do-everything receiver. He's probably one of my favorite receivers in the league. So if you need him to be a little Mike Evans-like, he can be. If you need him to be a little bit more Keenan Allen-like, he can be.
They talked about him, there was the talk this summer was they wanted to use him less in the slot. They wanted to use him more outside this year because they felt like that got him beat up a little bit. That was part of the, the reason for the injuries and stuff. And so he is kind of a versatile guy. So I think these guys are going to turn out to be reasonably good values when all is said and done.
Yeah. Alvin Kamara, 13 receptions upon his return. Not a lot of yardage, but what did you think?
I thought it was like if you played Alvin Kamara, you're pretty happy in PPR that he caught 13 of those passes. The overall offense was really inefficient in this game, and maybe it had something to maybe all those targets had to do with the shoulder soreness of one Derek Carr. By soreness I mean injury. He was playing with a sprained AC joint, and he says that's not the reason why. He being Carr, that the offense was not as going deep as much, and Chris Olave is probably hoping that's the case.
I got 2 consecutive passes to Chris Olave. One was underthrown, and both were underthrown actually. That would say otherwise about the shoulder.
I'm gonna say that's probably a made up thing by Derek Carr. Like he's he says it's no excuse, but I don't maybe he just doesn't want to say excuse, but it's a reason, it's an explanation. He's playing with a bad shoulder, and he's not 100%. And I think it says more about Jameis Winston than it does about anything else that they still want to, shoehorn an injured Derek Carr into that offense rather than taking their chances with Jameis Winston.
Yeah, everybody.
But I thought Kamara was great, and I thought the workload was great, and I hope he does more. But don't expect that heavy targeting every damn week.
Yeah, though I will say this: for the weeks that for as long as that shoulder is an issue, I would expect it just from the standpoint from the game script. What we saw was a lot of second and shorts and third and shorts where it was like we can scheme a little play up and no one's going to be able to cover Kamara tight enough unless they play him, unless they press him at the line. And if you do that, you're altering your defense in some ways that may expose you in the back end in other ways. So Kamara, to me, at least as long as Carr is out, is going to be a fun PPR play, even if the yardage isn't quite there. He looked good on the ground. He was decisive as ever. There were a couple plays that maybe if he were in midseason form, he would have broken those tackles. But the decisions and the intensity's there.
Super encouraged by that.
Yeah. Chris Olave, are you? I mean, I still love his game. Just don't know. He pretty much got shut out last week, and a lot of that had to do with those throws that Carr couldn't make. So
right, maybe the inability to throw, like Alvin Kamara said, this nonsense can't stand, right? I mean, I think everyone in New Orleans realizes they can't run the offense like that. So maybe this forces a decision on hey, maybe we need to sit Carr down for a little bit. Like if Jameis is in, what does he lead the world in air yards on his passes? In the games he started. So I think that's how. But either way, at some point, Derek Carr will also feel better, and this will all be okay. In the meantime, I don't know how you sit Chris Olave or who you're sitting him for. I think that's probably the better question. Who do you have that you want to sit Chris Olave for? Probably nobody. You're going to keep playing Chris Olave and hope that he can make some plays, and hope that the other pieces that you've built around him are also making plays and making enough of them to carry you through during his downtime, if it is downtime.
I would probably make an argument just to have fun with this and say maybe Adam Thielen. I would sit Olave for Adam Thielen.
I think that's fair.
Who's a later round guy that probably people got at a bargain, Sure. But it's got to be something like that where it's a good match. He's on a tear. It's good matchups. Nobody else has really stood up week after week to take over for what he's doing, and there's only a handful of guys like that. So.
I agree. There's a Nico Collins.
Yeah.
I'd be playing, I could play the hell out of him right now. So, there are probably guys you drafted in the double-digit rounds who have risen up. I think we just nailed two of them, and maybe there are more that aren't coming immediately to mind. But that's a tough decision every week. You're probably thinking that there's maybe an outlier guy that you can get out of your lineup that you weren't real happy with, and that you'll hope that Olave course corrects while you're playing the higher end. And that's kind of what I meant when I say you're hoping the other pieces you've built around him are rising up. But it is fair. Dude, on the radio show all week, Dempsey could not play enough Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
I feel like we do this, and we're talking about this constantly, and I get these feelings where I've gone overboard on a player because I get asked 100 questions, the same question, and I give the same answer. And by the time you've said that 100 times, you're going, God, I think I've said this a lot. I'm feeling I'm really uncomfortable that I've said it so many times, but it's still the right answer, right? So,
yeah. And so Thielen, Collins, Puka Nacua, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are good ones.
Tutu Atwell might be one of those too.
Yeah, Michael Wilson might be one of those. We'll talk about him in a moment. But Sam Howell, let's talk about Sam Howell. He had a tough week, against the Bills, who also baited Tua Tagovailoa in a way. Stay tuned for that in this week's top 10. I'm going to go into detail about how they baited Tua and how really NFL defenses bait young and veteran quarterbacks in ways that you don't see in the college game. But Howell seemed to rebound, this week. I thought he had a fairly nice rebound effort. So, what do you think of him? Where you at?
I think we have reached the definition of Sam Howell. He's not going to be very consistent. There are going to be good weeks and there are going to be not so great weeks. And I don't know that the not great weeks are Sam Howell's fault. Might be the fault of his offensive line. At least that's been the case so far, one or two times. So, I guess the hope is, what were you drafting him as? I think people were drafting him an awful lot in best ball, thinking he'd have a little bit of rushing equity and maybe give him a little something. But mostly as a third quarterback, not even a second quarterback. I think he's still.
I messed up and didn't get my second quarterback in time.
Or that, right. And I think that's exactly what he is. And I think the bigger question is, can he more consistently fuel the fantasy fortunes of the pieces we're interested in? Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, and of course, in my case, Curtis Samuel, because yes, I draft Curtis Samuel relentlessly at the ends of every draft, and because yesterday happens. Right. So, and probably not as often as my drafting of him merits. But I think that's the thing. And for me, McLaurin, it's interesting. He's just not getting the target share of a true wide receiver one so far this season. If he gets that, I think he's going to be perfectly fine. And the Sam Howell can feel those fortunes. And Jahan Dotson, maybe another case of where the fantasy world is a little bit ahead of the NFL world. The fantasy cycle moves a little quicker than the NFL cycle, it turns out.
Yeah, we're always anticipating how the breakout's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and what we see. And, I'm feeling Sam Howell for what he is. He's in that same tier as Jordan Love for me, which is a player who is developing. You see good things out of his game. You see that there's some elements to the offense that they're really fitting around well with him. And against good teams that can shut down that offense and make things a little bit more difficult, he's going to struggle. But when you put him in situations where he can win, he's going to stand in the pocket. He's going to be tough. He's going to make throws around defenders. He's going to, find those openings and hit them well. And he's aggressive and can buy time just well enough. I like him. I like him more than the guy, to be honest with you, that we're going to talk about next. Maybe it's just because he's a Steeler, but it's Kenny Pickett. Are you feeling Kenny Pickett?
Your anti-Yinzer sentiments are horrifying to me. I think it's fuck that. No, I don't care. I don't care about Yinzers. I like Bloom. I like some of these Yinzers.
I like all those guys too, but they're like my younger brother that seems to get the better of us every occasion.
I don't know if I'm mad at Kenny Pickett or Matt Canada or just everything in general. I liked Mike Tomlin's comments after the game. Is any of you going to change things? Hell yes, we're going to change things. So the first thing they're going to change is probably Kenny Pickett's going to take a seat for a little while and be great Mitch Trubisky. We'll get the call and we'll find out maybe how much we miss Kenny Pickett, right? I mean, that's my guess. I always thought Mitch Trubisky could be like a semi high level Sam Howell, right?
Yeah.
But he keeps telling me he can't. every time I talk myself into that position, Mitch Trubisky says, "Nah, probably not."
He doesn't know how to delegate, and that's the problem. He plays too much hero ball, and he ends up a zero.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like this is a bigger problem than the quarterback. He doesn't have Deontay Johnson, and I don't know if those other receivers are necessarily helping fill the void that he left open. And the rushing attack hasn't been as on point. It was pretty good in this game. Way to go, Najee. Love Harris.
Good Harris. Yeah. Oh, to Harris.
Love that.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's going to be the norm either. So I don't know. I'm not feeling fortunately, nobody drafted him to be their starter. Maybe you got him as a second quarterback in your Superflex or 2 QB leagues based on a really strong exhibition season. And if that's the case, I hope you have Sam Howell.
When you're like about to fall asleep, and just as you're about to fall asleep, something like your body has that whole sensation where it jerks, and you're jerked awake from what that is. And I call that a case of the Pickets when you see, except that happens to Pickett when he doesn't see pressure or doesn't know that the pressure is, coming right at him, and he discovers it maybe a little bit later than he expected. Even if it's still 5 or 6 steps away, he still gets a case of the Pickets.
I thought you were about to tell me I was putting you to sleep.
No. My voice is for putting people to sleep. So
this is true.
Feel
that.
My wife likes to.
You're
joke.
Like a lullaby.
My wife likes to joke that I'm that I should talk trash. That I'm the one podcast that wives allow husbands to listen to while they're both in the bedroom. So
behind the scenes, people, this is just for you, Matt. You don't have to listen to this part. When I get on the phone with Matt, it's usually for 3 hours at a time. And it's the most relaxing thing. It's like going to get a massage. It's like people are pouring honey all over me for 3 hours. It's very soothing.
So speaking of players that are soothing, I would say actually the next 2 players aren't even remotely soothing. They're very exciting. And I would say that's Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, did you see?
I saw.
What the fuck was that throw with Aaron Donald? Basically a jump throw with Aaron Donald in his chest holding him, and he still manages to use all arm to throw it pretty darn accurate 42 yards downfield. That was probably the most physically insane throw I've seen this season.
So there was one play yesterday I thought that was not quite that level, but where Justin Herbert escaped the near sack and then rolled out and still threw the ball down the field. I thought that was an amazing play too. Wow, Justin Herbert. And be careful, young man. Your fingers are valuable. Look, I think Anthony Richardson is turning into the thing that I'd hoped he was, which is the big winning lottery ticket, right? The scratcher that pays off and was a cheap purchase, right? So, or he got more expensive as we went along. But like I think he's exactly what you would hope he would be, right? I mean, we've seen the whole range there. There are times when it's not going to be great, and he's a rookie and doesn't have a lot of playing experience, and this was going to be a work in progress. But also the upside is still there, and just thanks to his remarkable physical attributes, he's going to make a ton of plays that are going to keep you in games and keep him in your lineup.
Yeah, and listen, it goes beyond that for me. You look at the footwork; it's
Right.
so buttery smooth and fast. This is a lot of players you watch with their footwork. Justin Fields is a good example, who we'll talk about later. But even Pickett, many other guys, they're hesitant. They're not quite sure. They're not quite sure of what they're seeing, and their feet are a reflection of that. When Richardson knows what he's doing, and a lot of times he really does, it's very immediate, very smooth, confident, and he's able to set up and fire the ball, with a great deal of confidence and fit the ball where it needs to be. And he can do it on script, off script, in the pocket, on script, in the pocket, off script, which is something that you don't normally see. He had a number of throws in that game that were fantastic. And really, if Kylan Granson doesn't drop a deep back shoulder throw, that's the ball game. I mean, it was probably the best game on TV for my money when it came to watching quarterbacks, because of the other guy, Matthew Stafford, who suffers a hip injury late in the game and guts it out. And early in the game, one of the tight window throws he made was the best tight window throw I saw.
I'm going to tell you. I feel Matthew Stafford 100%. Like I feel Anthony Richardson. I think he's. The Colts have to be super pleased with the investment they made. Yeah. And Panthers probably. Wrinkling their. And by the way, also when they
Michael
see CJ
Lombardi's
Stroud,
probably like passed out somewhere right now.
Doing the same thing, but like I think Matthew Stafford, if he gets some time, just give him some time. We saw the other side of that coin in Cincinnati, right? I mean, when he doesn't get time, he's going to get hammered, and it's not going to go as well, obviously. But give him some time. He is a really good quarterback with a really good arm. And I would be not feeling great if I was upcoming opponents knowing Cooper Kupp was coming back and seeing the talent they developed in Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell. So I owe, once again, every time I speak his name, I owe Tutu Atwell an apology.
Hey,
sorry,
I'm the same way. I know that the wind can blow him, in any direction, but he seems to be tough enough to withstand defender hits and make plays. So all love to him for that.
Van Jefferson should be like, what the hell am I not doing?
Catching the ball and using correct hand position that your wide receiver coach should show you. Oh, but your dad was a wide receiver coach who'd have the same problem. So, this is, again, Sean Jefferson's a good wide receiver coach, and Van Jefferson's a pretty good wide receiver, but Stafford, sometimes, just understand what people show you. And I still remember, and I know many of you may not have been football fans way back in the day when they actually allowed you to hit quarterbacks. But I remember that game with Dante Culpepper as a Lion, and Stafford was a rookie way back when. And he gets knocked out of the game, or seemingly knocked out of the game. And he basically runs out onto the field anyway. And Culpepper's standing there on the sideline like, I thought I was supposed to be in, and then makes a crazy play to win the ball game. And I want to say, I don't remember who that was against. I want to say it was ironically against the Rams, but I don't think it was. It was probably a different team.
I cannot remember.
But sometimes, Stafford is probably one of the toughest quarterbacks we've had of this generation. He's got that kind of, almost that Brett Favre, Steve McNair kind of thing going on, where, he's had his share of very difficult injuries and still manages to play through them. And I just didn't. He's one of those guys. He's like that pet you had or at least the pet I had that's been in fights with other pets, unfortunately, or wild animals, or won't stay indoors and been hit by cars and all sorts of things. And you're like, I give up, because if this animal lives 3 or 4 years, it'll probably be a record, and it lives 15 years.
Right.
That's Matthew Stafford's career in a nutshell. Is he's that guy you think he's not going to have a 5-year career in this league at the rate that he's going, and now here he is as the elder statesman and still tough as nails. Totally feeling him with Cooper Kupp coming back. If they can get a little bit more dynamic skill in the run game, they will be really dangerous. Even if they don't, with the way this line's blocking, they still have good offense. They're just not against great teams, or teams that can foil them with a good scheme. Michael Wilson, 2 touchdowns. But Joshua Dobbs, the aerospace engineer.
So sometimes I like to go back to my Sesame Street days, and it's as simple as this. One of these things is not like the others. Right? Yeah. And I'm feeling Michael Wilson as being not like the others. He is a bigger body. He gives them different presence in the receiving core. And I think he's probably a guy that should have been on people's radar going into the season. I've talked a little bit about this whole theory of, he's the different piece. And the opportunities I think will continue to come. I mean, it's not like he's a super high-end play because it's the Cardinals, but he's a different piece in an offense that needs a different piece. There's a bunch of smaller fellows. Rondale Moore didn't get enough backfield work. Greg Dortch is didn't get enough return work. Man. Right. And so, I just feel like this is Michael Wilson seemed like he was walking into a job, and I think he's doing it.
Yep. He is the best blocker on the team, partially due to his size, but mostly due to his technique. He combo blocks defensive ends and works up the linebackers well. He can handle linebackers and work out the safeties. He plays with high effort. And one of the things you want to see with wide receivers with route running is a balance between patience and suddenness. You want to be able to set defenders up patiently, and then when you pull the trigger with the move, it needs to be sudden. Well, he's a tier above sudden. He's violent when he makes moves, and he put his violence just with his movement, not with any contact with defenders, put 2 49ers defensive backs on the ground in this game.
I believe what you're trying to say is Bob Harris's Sesame Street analogy you're feeling.
I'm totally feeling it. I totally am feeling that. And he's the best route runner on the team. And so I think that, he's not going to be the guy you're going to have replace Chris Olave, on that list. But in a few weeks, if it keeps up, he might.
Bless you, Matt Waldman.
Another thing for the Zoomers to be mad about with the RSP cast audio is that I cough and sneeze occasionally. So sorry, guys. Yeah, it's just real world. So you're going to have to deal with it. We don't live in a sanitized bubble. How about Michael Whyle or Josh Whyle?
So see Jonnu Smith, right? I mean, right? like this is the Titans offense has gone for full circle. Right, when the Titans offense is working, Derrick Henry is going to have 122 yards. Ryan Tannehill is going to throw a touchdown pass, and it's going to be to a tight end, and you're not going to know who it is in advance.
Agreed. Got no more to say about that one. Tank Dell, still feeling Tank?
Yeah, I'm still feeling Tank. Right, I did feel like the momentum had built a little more than it needed to, and that there was going to be course correction weeks. This was probably it. The 20 targets over the previous 2 weeks are great. And as much as they're throwing the football and seem unable to run it, those numbers are not necessarily sustainable, but they're still within the realm of possibility. So he remains a flex level play for me. But everyone who is trying to shove him ahead of Nico Collins should not do that.
No, I think this is a situation where it depends on scheme and what goes on. And I think if you have good safety play, and tight coverage with that good safety play, Nico Collins is the play. If you have erratic safety play and you're playing a little bit more zone, Tank Dell is going to be your man most likely. Or just good matchups against coverage that isn't, man-to-man isn't very strong. So, look at the cornerbacks. Look at the
feeling
safeties.
This cat sneaking up on me. That's what I'm feeling.
See that? There you go. Well, that cat is that cat's nickname Russell, because I think Russell's sneaking up on some people a little bit in Denver with the way that he's been playing lately and the lack of great receiver play.
Yeah, I don't know that he's sneaking up on anybody. I mean, it's been pretty consistently productive, right? Yeah. And he's benefited from this past week, a good matchup. He should have expected a good game, and I did. I don't know. I think he's the piece of this offense you can trust right now. Which is hard to believe, but until we get, I think Cortland Sutton's still playable, Jerry Jeudy's still playable. I don't know if any of the running backs are, I'm forcing them into lineups at the moment. I thought this would be a Javonte week, and he got hurt, right? So not much you can do about that. But Russell Wilson, I think, is a weekly guy that you should need to consider right now.
I would totally agree with that. And part of the things that I love about this offense is that they figured out quick passing. Get the ball out fast. Get it to Jerry Jeudy, not in the intermediate range of the field. Get him to him on those quick slants. Get him to him in the short range where he can use that quickness against linebackers who don't have a running start on him. That when he's matched up against safeties, maybe that quickness is a little overplayed. But when you get him in the shallow range of the field, he's able to get yardage after the catch.
I'm feeling like this whole Jeudy talk, you're avoiding my Cortland Sutton favored play, is like a veiled microaggression against me. That's what I feel.
Report that to HR. See what they have to say about that.
Fuck you.
Yeah, HR. Hold on.
Where is he?
HR's got his ass turned to you. That's all I got to say. All
right,
and he's not. He hasn't made any sounds yet, but he also did just eat about 20 minutes ago. So
fine.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton is definitely a startable player who can give you good work and may be the top receiver on this team. But I'd say that I'd also say look out for Marvin Mims, because when it was fourth quarter, they were down, and then the inexplicable play calling that led to a turnover on downs, and of course you knew the offense was going to try the shot play. Who do they stick in there as the shot play receiver? Marvin Mims. Huge big play, and that tells you something about how the coaches are feeling about him. So now Cortland Sutton, end of the season, we might have Marvin Mims as the Christian Watson.
Yeah, I feel that this is another case where, our fantasy expectations or how we see things are different, how coaches see things. We see the huge plays and the great things that he's done. Coaches see the broader picture and the things he's not doing, and he'll do over time. And hopefully, that time will be this season, and he'll continue to progress and earn more playing time and bring that big play ability with him. In more playing time will be more big plays.
I'm feeling Russell Wilson because I think they figured out what to get the most out of him right now.
Yep.
So that works. Justin Fields, are you feeling what you saw last week, notwithstanding some of the errors at the end of the game?
I'm feeling the quarterback who needed to have a big game against a defense that gave up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins the week before and 30-plus points to the Commanders the week before that. I mean, this was a game he needed to deliver in my mind, and he did, and good on him. And maybe to the
I feel like you just visited the HR office with that response.
I feel like it seems like his comments about the coaching may have been more correct than Chase Claypool's comments about the coaching.
I would agree with that. I think he has. I think Justin Field is far more self-aware, and I'm feeling Luke Getsy for responding and realizing that people kept saying to him, stop trying to make him into Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Because Luke Getsy's first job as a quarterback coach was to basically sit and watch Aaron Rodgers do his job. I know he did more than that, but to say he coached Aaron Rodgers, yeah, maybe on scheme. But that's, again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. As the Kelseys have said, as Howie Long's son had said, Kyle Long, a lot of these guys are faking it till they make it in the NFL.
Yep.
And I've been saying that for years as well. So again, Justin Fields played much smoother, much faster. Drops were quicker. He seemed to, have
incorporated more pieces.
Yep. He absolutely did. He looked a lot more comfortable, and when you're comfortable and when the difficult plays come up, you're not overthinking and you're making big plays. Now, the two big plays he had that sucked, he had a rollout into a blitz that you wished he had seen that blitz and got rid of it, known that he had a plan before he rolled into it. So that caused the fumble and really turned the game. And then you had the sneak whole thing with the coaches where they had a lane for a sneak, and then they call timeout, and then they hand the ball to Khalil Herbert, and that's pretty much game over at that point. But Khalil Herbert, did you like what you see, or again was this another? The Denver Broncos basically rolled over and died on the right side of their defense for the past 2 to 4 weeks.
Thank you, Vance Joseph. I you don't want to put it on the coach, but it seems like it's been a repeatable thing. You would make some adjustments. The adjustments have not been made, and yeah, I think that's the Khalil Herbert you think you will see from time to time, but I don't think it's going to be a consistent thing going forward. I think there'll be continued ups and downs. He's kind of what I think he remains what he is. I mean, every week I have some decisions with him. And most of them go against him, and I think they'll continue to.
Yeah, Denver linebacker number 42. I will just say Nick Bonito not having the best few weeks in terms of how he reacts to stimuli that maybe he shouldn't jump 5 steps inside on certain plays where he's basically giving up a rushing lane. Certainly Benito's just really been, having a rough go at it. So yeah, Denver on this side of the field, just awful. One of the worst defenses in terms of Aaron Schatz's DVOA in history, apparently. Officially now, after 4 games, they have the worst DVOA of any defense in history. Now we'll see if that keeps up. I think it probably will. Based on what we've seen, though the safeties have been a little bit banged up. Maybe they'll help out because they've been involved in that massacre too. Still, I'm feeling what they did with Justin Fields, and Khalil Herbert ran hard and played with the effort that he should. But you're right, they're going to face defenses that are a little bit more prepared and don't overreact to things. We've already talked about Marvin Mims. Well, you didn't. You didn't say nothing.
I did.
You did. Did you?
Yeah,
okay.
I co-signed. I talked a lot about it. What are you talking about? He's a guy that's going to progress. Well, you don't even listen to me.
HR was in my ear. That was the problem. That or biting my foot. I don't know which one. But Jahmy Gibbs. Are you triggered? Are you like the rest of the people on Twitter who were expecting greatness out of the gate?
So I am like those people who expected greatness. I don't know that I necessarily expected it out of the gate, although I expected more than I'm getting. But part of that is David Montgomery's been really good, and you should expect people to be really good running behind that offensive line, even though they've been dealing with some injuries. I want to say the stacked boxes have worked in Montgomery's favor, them not being a lot of them, or their teams aren't really focused on stopping him because there's a lot of weapons that they have to deal with down the field, and another one coming back this week in Jameson Williams. We'll get a better feel for what that guy is soon enough as well. So, but one thing he is able to run past almost anybody on the field, and that opens up things even further. So that might make Montgomery's life easier. Like, he's getting targets still, Jahmy Gibbs. He's still part of the offense. This is another case. I just want to restate this. What we're seeing is, look, we know a couple things. The Lions loved him. The Lions wanted him. They were willing to burn high-end draft capital on him. Teams don't lie.
And get rid of DeAndre Swift for him.
Right, to get rid of DeAndre Swift for him. You would hope that Philadelphia's success with DeAndre Swift might give them a sense of urgency to at least make them not look so stupid. But they don't care about the same things we care about. They care about winning games, and at some point, Jahmy Gibbs will pay off. Will it be to will he end up paying off to the price we paid for him, or I paid for him, certainly? I'm hoping so. And I'm not giving up on that notion, but this is going to be a timeshare at the very least, with favoring David Montgomery until it can't be.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to hope that Jahmy Gibbs' playmaking ability starts showing through a little more as he gets a little more acclimated to this level of play.
It favors David Montgomery for 2 reasons. One is that he is a very good personal pocket protector for Jared Goff. He's an excellent blocker in a way that Jahmy Gibbs never was and probably will never be to the level that Montgomery is. So when you do that, guess what that sets up? The screen game. And if they know that you're a capable blocker and you're not just a speed bump on the way to the quarterback, they have to honor you as a blocker. And that's why you're not seeing a lot of screens with Jahmy Gibbs. And also you're not putting Gibbs in the backfield and using him consistently as a receiver out of that backfield, because if teams don't know all the time that you're just going to be a route runner out of that situation, then it gives them a little bit of an easier opportunity to key on the things they want to key on. The other thing is that contrary to the analytics crowd who used to say, "Oh, David Montgomery sucks in the red zone," well, maybe the answer was, after all, when you actually watch the games a little bit more, is you see that, the offensive line in Chicago wasn't very good, and that David Montgomery made good decisions. So, of course, you got a big, thick back who is going to be able to run through people and make decent moves. He's going to be able to find those creases, and they're going to reward him with his pass protection, probably with more opportunities in the red zone. Jahmyr Gibbs looks good. From what I'm seeing, he looks just fine. He's just not getting all the opportunities that people want. And yes, DeAndre Swift is getting way better production, but they have one of the most dynamic runners in the game at the quarterback position. And guess what that does? You can use zone read principles and put yourself in a situation where the man-on-man advantage between the guys in the box to whatever side of the field you're going to run to, you have 1 to 2 more men who are available to block than defenders are able to try to attack. And when you have a 1, 2, or even 3-man advantage, you're getting chunk plays on the consistent level for DeAndre Swift that Jahmyr Gibbs isn't going to get, because Jared Goff is never going to be mistaken for Jalen Hurts as a runner. But speaking of 2 runners, Cam Akers, Alexander Mattison. Are you feeling any of these guys? They ran all over the Panthers this week, but does that really matter anything to you?
I mean, no, I'm not. No, I mean, so Mattison, I hope, continues to deliver like he has the last couple games. And if he doesn't, Cam Akers is going to get the chance to deliver more than, he otherwise was going to, clearly in Los Angeles. So, I'm happy that Mattison seems to be finding his footing. This is going to be a pass-heavy team no matter what, and I think that's going to be the big problem for both of them. I mean, they're going to be more than willing to throw the ball, or way more than willing to throw the ball, and it's going to be a limiting factor in some games. And now they're limiting factors for each other. It's not a great situation from a fantasy perspective.
No, it isn't. But we haven't had a great situation for running backs from a fantasy perspective this year. So with that in mind, what I would warn people about, or let people know about, is watching these 2 players. We know that Cam Akers is probably a faster runner than Alexander Mattison, but if you actually watch last week's game, what you'll notice is Alexander Mattison is far more decisive, understands what's going on with the offense better, looks quicker, is making his decisions without any tentativeness at all, whereas Akers looks maybe a quarter to a half step slower than what you would expect from him, but it's because he's still kind of figuring out this offense and the calls, and he's still thinking through things. So Mattison looked really good on Sunday. Akers produced well, but looked a little slower than what you would expect. And really the common denominator is that the Vikings offensive line blew the Panthers off the line of scrimmage.
They're not going to do that every week.
And they're not. So right now, for the next couple of weeks, Mattison may be the more comfortable looking back. But Akers eventually still has an opportunity to play into this. So if you have one, try to get the other, I guess.
Unless you're feeling murky backfields.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, though, and like your point is, I mean, this is just something we're going to have to deal with and work through as we come to grips with the direction the NFL's taken with these running back groupings that seem to be all very popular, except in Los Angeles, where Kyron Williams continues to get like 9,000% of the work.
And fucks up with that. But even Ronnie Rivers looked good, and I always liked Rivers as a scat back, but I never really thought of him as that kind of thing. Hey, now I like Ronnie, but Jaleel McLaughlin, speaking of Zach, scat backs that, I've been crowing about since probably January. McLaughlin gets in the game with Javonte Williams dealing with that hip injury and looked pretty darn explosive.
This has been his lane. This has been his lane. Every time we've seen him, the people who cover the team on a daily basis have been pleasantly surprised by what he's done. This might be he might get increased. I'm guessing increased opportunities are coming. We'll see. We don't know what Javonte Williams' hip injury, if it's serious or going to cost him time or whatever. But for sure, to me, this is going to be, we're going to see more McLaughlin going forward.
Yeah, but we're still going to see a lot of Samaje Perine, even if Williams isn't there, because Perine has the power back and he can pass protect in a way that McLaughlin is struggling with. But listen, we don't struggle here other than maybe for time. But we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. You can find Old Football Diehard here over at Football Diehards and on Twitter at Football Diehard. You can find old Matt Waldman at Matt Waldman on Twitter, X, Pluto, whatever we call it. And, of course, at Matt Waldman, RSP.com. And thanks again for listening. We do love you all. Appreciate it.
Feeling the listeners. Feeling them. Love you, Matt. Bye.
Bye.